Hey everyone, you are at the right place. Joining Gilia and Kim, elevating and empowering. That is what this is. Gilia and Kim, elevating and empowering. We are here to provide uplifting conversations filled with motivation, coaching, and yes, real talk. So get ready because what we're trying to do is help you live life to the fullest. Whether you're looking for inspiration, personal growth, or just to simply have fun, you have made it to the right space. So we want to make sure that we turn up the energy, empower you in the steps of living your best life. So we want you to make sure that you're laughing, you're learning, and we're going to level up together. Welcome, welcome. I like
Level up
that.
together, level up together.
Exactly.
What's up,
What's up? Yeah, so I mean, Kim and Gilliam, we are the Hess cousins. Yeah, so you'll see we look alike. She may call me Gidget, which is my nickname. So you may not hear Gilia sometimes. I may even call her Kimmy K because with cousins we go way back, right? And we keeping it real, really real.
I have to say something. Me and my dad were watching Coming to America. Remember and in the barbershop scene where he's like his mama called him Cassius. I'm gonna call him Cassius. That's like me. Your mom called Gilead. I'm gonna call you Gilead.
Yeah. If we always call you Gidget, I'm calling you Gidget, right? Yes, yes. Well, Kim, come on, tell us about yourself. I mean, we got to know, who are you?
Well, my name is Kim or Kimberly, and I am a cultural anthropologist, a former DEI consultant. I'm a coach, I'm an advisor. I'm super quirky. I'll admit I'm weird. I am very spiritual and woo woo, and I will always be asking you about your feelings. Gidget, how do you feel today?
And, oh gosh, that is so true. You're that, and also you find
Very
a
heart-centered.
silver lining in everything. When we really don't want that silver lining there, you will find it. And I think we're all going, here goes Kim.
But we're elevating and empowering on this podcast, right? Right?
Right. So we got to have a silver lining in there. We do. Even though we gonna have real talk, right? Okay.
real talk, empowering,
Yes.
elevating, silver lining.
Right. And here's what's the
That's why we
weird.
balance.
Yeah. Here's what the weird thing. As you introduce yourself, we always knew that we were so much alike. And what's so funny is our family, especially our guy cousins and stuff,
Which we have a lot of.
yeah, they rag us a lot because we're so much alike. We are the adventurous ones. We will move next week out of the country
in a heartbeat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because we truly live life and we don't fear. So I say all this to say that, our paths are pretty much kind of like the same in a way, but, even though it's a little different, it's the same. I, too, have led my life, my educational background, has been in these, the sociology, psychology field. That's why I graduated, with, and then went into being a family therapist, and then on into creating Mecco Entertainment, which had the talk show Into Youth, which I host that and had a great team. And then we went into the music industry, managing artists. And so that's how I feel in Atlanta hurt in terms of managing artists. I believe that everyone should know their purpose. If you don't, please start working on it. I always knew mine as the time I was a child, and that was to make sure globally that everyone is trying to move towards living their best life. We are only here one time. We got one shot at this thing, right? So let's try to do it.
As a spiritual woo-woo person, that's a different show. Are we really here one time? We're only here one time this life, but next time I'm hoping to come back as someone very, very wealthy. Someone who can eat pizza every day and not gain weight. Like that's what I aspire to my next lifetime.
Yeah. That's heaven, baby. That's heaven, baby. Okay, you get to do that in heaven. All right. Yeah, no. Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. That is
But you're right. This lifetime. We got to make it the best, which is why you and I are both here, which is why we wanted to start this podcast, because we
Absolutely.
want people to live their absolute best lives.
Yes, yes. And so that's why, yes, we're going to tap into your feelings on the spiritual element, right? But not this show. Sorry, we're not. We will do that another
Not the
show.
show.
Because guess what this
I
show
won't,
is about? What is
yeah,
this
I
show
won't
about?
try to balance your chakras this time, but
You're good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What
we
are we doing?
will tap into our greatness.
Yes. And when we say tapping into
Mm-hmm.
your greatness, that doesn't mean um, at a job or riding a motorcycle or, building a house, all the
The
things.
external. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We're talking about in you, your greatness in you is what we're talking about. Right, Kim?
That's right. That's right. So what is, you started talking about it, but what does that really mean, tapping into one's greatness? And I guess the best place to start is, why do we need to tap into our greatness?
You know, I feel like that's something that we always needed to do, but I think that is very important, in the climate of today, right? All the changes from a political aspect, right? And all the things that came with the changes with the political aspect, right? I also think that we need to tap into it because before the changes happened politically, we had the culture of COVID. Everybody
Yeah.
closed up into their homes and not interacting with one another. It really sunk the morale level down and changed the game. So we really needed to start there, right? So
Right.
I feel like the political climate of the day compounded on all of the things that happened from COVID, right? So
Right.
to do it, I think it's
Oops.
important, for us to do this, now. We got great people out here. I feel like everybody, you were brought here great, right?
Right.
And your journey that you
Oops.
travel, there's always something, plucking a hole in your greatness. If you're walking around, I bet you see a bunch of holes in you, right? And that's people plucking at your great. If it's not people, it's jobs, it's things, it's situations, it's relationships. There's all these holes in your body. We can't let this happen. We got to find out, how do we combat the holes of people pecking into our greatness, right? So, that's a good question.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of self-doubt going on, as you mentioned. There's so many external things that impact our greatness, and there's a lot of internal things as far as childhood, as far as self-doubt. And when you and I spoke, and you said, I want our first episode to be about people's greatness, because a lot of people don't realize that greatness. And so you asked me to, look up some stats on this. And so I found out that several studies indicate that 85% of Americans suffer from low self-esteem. And I was pretty shocked about that. What do you think about that
I
number?
yeah,
85%.
I'm not shocked. I'm
Mhm.
not shocked because, over my lifetime, I watch what happens in families. I watch
Mm,
what happens in schools, right? I watch what's happening in our environment. So that number, I would have been shocked if that number would have been very low. If you had
mm,
said
yeah,
45%,
yeah.
40%, I'd be like, are you kidding me? So that's what would have shocked me. Um, we're constantly, even like I said, as children, we're constantly going through, we're constantly fighting, you know external warfare, right? And also, you know we're already carrying the internal, be it something maybe casual that's said as a child, right? That it affected you, so you're carrying that out, right? And then you go to school and you've got to deal with all of the bullying and all the things that happen at school. Simple. I remember, being in school, and the kids at school, the girls, obviously, that would always say, "You think you cute?" Oh, and they want to beat you up, and I'm just like, "What? Did I walk in this building and say, yeah, I know I'm fine? Yeah, I know." I
It
had
was your confidence.
low self esteem in school ever, because I had childhood trauma, right? Those are the
Mhm.
things we won't talk about because this is about your greatness. And we're not even gonna, you and I both didn't have the perfect childhood, right? We carry a lot from our childhood.
No one
That is
does.
going to be also another show because we really want to steer on your greatness. But I want our audience to know we do not come from, perfection, right? We too have
No one
had
does.
our armors to bear, right? And our, past across, with fire, walking over fire. I'm making it really big because that's me. I'm very dramatic, right? Um, so yeah, and it's just like these people say these things to you in school, but they don't know what you're dealing with at home. They don't know what you're dealing with inside. And so you walk around and you're just so confused as to, I don't even think I'm cute at all. And I'm now getting beat up because you think something of me. But that's how we
Mhm.
walk. We always look at others and we have this perception of other people. And that's how we move towards them.
That part.
That is not the way we need to move. We should be learning about people, not projecting a perception, right? You, who are you to project a perception? And so that's what I'm thinking. And that's how I move. I want to know about you. You know, tell me who you
Mm.
are. And that's how I always, lead in with someone I meet. Ooh, tell me who you are. I want to know about you. Right. And once I know about you, then I start tapping into how I can help you because I start finding out where you are sliding away from your greatness, right? So then I start working on moving you in the right direction towards your greatness. So that's why I always ask the question, or that's why I'm a great listener when I meet someone to find out who they are, what is going on inside of them, what's going on in their soul. So, yeah.
So let me ask you, I'm getting some feedback.
Mm.
Can you hear it or is it just
I
me?
don't, no, I don't know.
Okay.
I love
Maybe
keeping this
okay.
natural. Yeah, she's getting
Yeah,
feedback.
because every time I say something, it kind of reverberates like the voice of God. So all right.
Oh my God, it could be. It could be. What is
Okay,
he
I think
saying?
we're good. I don't hear it now.
Is he saying
So
something good? What's going to happen?
listeners, if you're hearing the voice of God,
Oh yeah, I'm loving that. That's the right
I
voice, by
told
the
you I
way.
was spiritual.
Yeah, hey,
Um,
that's
I was going to ask you after you talk to someone and you find out about them and you find out what's going on with them and maybe how they're, how do I put this, not stepping in their greatness or they're kind of damping it down. Like I remember you told me a story about I think it was an HR, something going in HR and someone was berating one of your employees and you had to pull them aside, the employee, and give them a pep talk about stepping into their greatness. Is
absolutely. Yeah, this actually happened not too long ago. And, things that are out of your control, you basically, as an employee, you will sign papers for, whatever you're looking for. I don't want to put, the business out, but you will sign papers for something you desire. So your signature's on that paper. And so sometimes when you sign papers of something you desire, right, you will have deductions out of your paycheck as a result. And so when those deductions happen, you go into a tizzy. And that's what happened to the employee that was in a management role. A subordinate came, cussing and screaming and yelling, you took money on my paycheck. I didn't sign up for this, da, 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 and carrying on. Um, and so I ended up talking to that manager and, it happened in a hallway in front of other people and she was really upset. And I wanted to really first get her through the process of, taking care of the employee. And then I made a phone call back and I said, now let's talk, you and I. Let's not let that happen again because you don't know how great you are, apparently. Do you not know your value? You are very valuable. You're an asset to this company. You should demand respect at all times. So I want you to report the incident, to the CEO because that should never happen. And I don't want anyone to make you feel less than. And you shouldn't let anyone make you feel less than. I need you to say with me, you are valuable. And she's like, I'm valuable, right? And I said, you are an asset. She was like, I'm an asset. And I said, you, from now on will demand respect. And she said, oh
Mm.
my gosh, I feel so much. Thank you so much. Right. And I just, this climate has to stop where we can say anything to anyone, and not take
Mm.
responsibility for our actions, right? So you devalue someone else without taking responsibility for your actions. You signed the paper,
Mm.
right? It's really about you. It's not about the other person. So let's not
Right.
let's stop, you know, taking someone else out of their greatness, right? Because you're not following protocol.
Well, let me ask you this, because you said someone else devaluing you and taking you out of your greatness. What about when we ourselves devalue our own greatness, our own worth, or we step out of our own greatness? How do we, first of all, how do we recognize that? Because you from the story that you told me before and you're telling our listeners now, like, I feel like you did such a great service to that person, saying, hey, repeat after me, you are an asset, you are valuable. But let me tell you, what if we don't have a Gilia in our lives to tell us that? How do we do that for ourselves? How do we
Well,
recognize it?
so
And
the
then
thing
how do
is,
we step into our greatness?
good question. Very good question. So the thing is, the two simple words, your greatness. I think you focus on your greatness. Let's go beyond that, because your greatness is basically, indulging, or, finding the best version of self, right?
Oh,
And
oh,
the way
oh,
that
oh.
the way that you're doing it, basically is constantly having like self-awareness. You're constantly, moving towards personal growth. You are embracing challenges. You are constantly you one got to sit down and figure out, and this is all self-work, right? And
Yeah.
so to be able to dive into your greatness, right, you have to do self-work, right? So part
You
of
got to
that
dive into
self-work,
yourself.
exactly. So, think of it as a glass of water, but it's full of cubes, these heavy cubes, right? And you know how, have you ever drank water and you can't really, and you thirsty and you cannot
Hmm.
get to that water because those cubes are so heavy. So
Yeah.
you're like, you're trying to sip to get
It's
that
taking up all
water.
the space. Yeah.
And it's like, why are you doing that when you can remove some of the cubes? I understand that you want it cold and to the desire of your liking, right? But it's heavy. It's heavy. You can't
Right.
get to where you need to be because you need to remove some of the load. So the glass with all the cubes, you want some of that good, clean, crisp water. Start taking some
Right.
of those cubes out. So I just feel like some of the common sense has to happen, when you're trying to move through this thing called life, right? So once you start moving a lot of the cubes and you take that, you're like, oh God, how it feels good. So it's just like with self. You start
Lo-
moving and peeling through all those layers of, self-doubt, you know, uh,
That's that ice.
yeah, yes, yes. I'm not
Well,
good
because
at
as you're
this.
talking, I'm thinking of when you go to a fast food place and they fill it up with ice. And then you have less of the soda or the tea or the water, like you're saying, because it's filled with ice. And you
Right.
just want the good stuff. So you're saying,
That's what
because
we're doing.
I do this, like I scoop out some of the
That's what
ice
we're doing.
so I
Kim,
can get to the good stuff, the
Kim, that's what,
greatness.
yes, Kim, that's what we're doing. We think of
I love that.
yes, when you go to a restaurant, they fill that up with ice. Think of you being the fluid, right? You,
Right.
yourself being the
The
fluid,
water,
and then everyone else is throwing things into you,
your
negativity, all
childhood
that. That's the
trauma,
ice. That's the
your
ice.
job.
Yes,
Okay.
there's
That
so
that person
little of
that
you.
beeped at you on the highway.
Yes, it's so
Okay.
little of you and so
Mm.
much of everyone and everything else. And so that
And you're
you don't
saying we
even
can
know
fill it up
yourself.
after we remove the ice, we can fill it back up with water
Oh
or
my gosh,
soda
yes.
or
Yes,
juice.
or you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
Or
everybody's walking around with, so much less of them and so much more of others and things and situations. And that's
are you
where the
about
problem
to
lies.
make me cry?
No, that's where the problem is. Let's
Because
dump
you're
that
speaking the
ice out.
truth.
Yes, yes. Let's dump that
That is a
because,
powerful
yes.
analogy or
And some of
metaphor.
the things that are helpful is start learning your strengths and weaknesses, right? You know, nobody want, I always thought, people hate that question at interviews. I absolutely love it because I can actually
You.
tap into, hey, what is my strength? Because everybody can't figure it out, right?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah, yeah.
Nobody focuses on their strength and weaknesses, right? Because nobody
Right.
wants to have weaknesses. Why not? Why? It's just something that you haven't honed in on. We don't know everything.
But are you
Nobody
telling
can figure
us,
out their strengths. Why? Because they're constantly filled with negativity. It's so
are you
hard for
telling
them.
us to focus on our weakness so we can get rid of it? Or
I
not get rid of it, but
no,
notice
no,
it and scoop it out like the ice?
no. I want, just as you focus on your strength, I want you to focus on your weaknesses, right?
Okay.
And it's not to. It's a self awareness. Um,
Mm.
I my weakness is riding a motorcycle, right? Why do I know that? Because I stepped on, I pulled the brakes and flew off of it and ran into a tree, my head, and slid my fence down, my face down a fence, right? And
How
lost
did
my
I not know
hair and
this?
everything. Yeah. And I'm laying in the ground, right? Well, that's a weakness I have. Now, will I get back on the bike? Not right now, right? Because that didn't feel great. But it is a weakness. I know that is a weakness. So then I'm not going to really do that right now. And if I'm not going to do it, and here's the catch, it's a weakness. So I'm not going to just jump right back on that bike, right? I jumped on it without training because I wasn't accepting that it is a
Mm.
weakness, right? So now, before I jump on that bike, I'm going to go get training. I'm going to learn how to ride the bike, and then I'm going to get back on it. So a weakness is not bad. What the weakness means is you just need education and training in that area. Is that something you really want? If it's something you really want, that's the direction you need to go. Your strength may not always be your strengths, which is why you want to focus on it. Your strengths may be something someone else told you. How often do we walk in this life based on what someone else say, you are, or you have, or you know what I mean? But what about you? How come you're not spending so much time, and this everyone out there, how come you're not spending so much time on you?
Mm.
What is your passion? This is all about your greatness. What is your passion? What do you love? What excites you? Because those are the things that you need to focus on. Again, everyone was put here with a purpose. Nobody was put here to be a bobblehead other than the bobblehead.
Right.
Okay. That's why they're doing that, right? Go buy
Right.
those. Go buy those. I don't want you to be one. Buy it. All right. But in order to find out what your purpose is, you gotta have time with yourself.
Time with yourself.
Self aware.
And I also think to slow down. So you can have that time with yourself and have that introspection, which admittedly I know it's difficult for many, many people for myself. I would much rather be on social media than meditate or even sitting in silence. Like I often ask people, how often do you sit in silence to hear your own thoughts?
Absolutely.
Right.
And if you're afraid to call it meditation, which is what it is, right? But if you're afraid to call it meditation, honestly, I really don't care what you call it. I just want you to do it. I really want you to sit with yourself alone in a room, not reading a book, not listening to music, but sitting with yourself.
And that can be scary.
Oh,
That,
absolutely.
that can be
You know how many
scary.
people don't like themselves? And you find
Yeah.
that out when you sit with yourself, because then you're gonna pick up the phone or you're gonna pick up something because you're like, I don't even like this time I'm spending. But yet
Yeah.
you don't like yourself, but you want to go out here and have a relationship. You who don't like yourself want somebody else to like you, and you want to give yourself to someone else. That is also another show that we
Pellet.
yeah.
So what you're saying is we need to discover our greatness before, we go out there trying to, share with others.
It, absolutely. Because you got to think of, like, I love how you talk about energy all the time. I
Yeah.
light up like no tomorrow when you talk about energy, because your greatness is also a part of that energy.
Mm.
You're like you say, your body, all of the aura, all that is your energy. So if you're living in your greatness right now and great things are happening, you're on top of the world, and then you start to um, combine your life. You meet someone and you're trying to have a relationship with someone who is depressed, really doesn't want to work
Negative,
and just negative, what do you think that's going to do to your energy?
unmotivated.
Yeah, your energy is, because if you care about them, you're gonna stay, which is sad, right? And then you're gonna be, your energy's high, theirs is low, but somehow you guys are starting to come together.
I've
You're
been there.
starting to meet, right? You
And it
know,
diminishes your greatness.
exactly, exactly.
Oh,
So we don't, nothing against anyone that has a low energy or they're depressed or whatever, because we want them to come out of
we've
that,
all
right?
been there.
But
We've all been there.
right, but we don't want to merge the two energies together,
Yeah.
because we need as many high energy people who, are self-aware, people are really moving into their greatness. We need as many people as possible, because you and I are the only ones and not in this, we can't be the only ones in this game trying to elevate, right?
No,
And
no.
power. We want to span out. We want to give this gift so that they can keep on giving. It's a gift that keeps on giving, right? But we know that here it starts with Gilia and Kim. It starts here.
I love that. I love it. Oh, so we are about to wrap up. Our time is almost up, but
They're like,
you I
no,
right, you
no.
dropped so many gems, and I really want to talk about this on another episode about what you're talking about, merging energies.
Absolutely.
And because I have been there trying to save someone who is negative or unmotivated or just going through a rough time in life. And I think so many people have done that, especially women.
Absolutely, yes.
And
Absolutely.
once again, it, like you're saying, it diminishes our greatness because we're pouring, we're that the ice. We are that cup of soda, and all of the ice of someone else's negativity or
Exactly.
depression or
Yeah,
that we're choosing, and we're trying to elevate them. We're
you
trying
were
to,
full of liquid. And look what's happening.
and then the ice,
Oh, yeah. And imagine if you were full of liquid, right? And then all the ice is coming in, you were already full. What is going to happen to your liquid? It's on the
the
table. It
liquid
starts,
spills
yeah, all that
out.
spillage.
Oh,
Yeah. And now you've got all the ice and your liquid is coming down. What good
and
are
that
you
liquid is
now
your
to
greatness.
yourself or to anyone else, because you just poured it all in to someone else, right? You know, you just took all that negative energy in. And now you
Exactly.
lose your sense of self. And that's what we don't want to do, lose our own sense of self. And so that's
Exactly.
why we have to stop allowing others to project who we are. We have to own that. We own
Mhm.
it. Let me say what I say all the time. You came here by yourself. Let's ignore the assistance, right?
Tell it.
Right, of the pushing and the your mom, all that. Let's ignore. Let's go with what I'm saying. You came here by yourself. You leave by yourself. I don't know anyone else.
Mm,
I haven't seen anyone else in a casket with someone else. Have you?
right.
They're in that casket by themselves.
Unless
Or
you're
if they're
like
being
conjoined
cremated,
twins, but
yeah, right, yeah. Or if they're being cremated, they're in that box going down, in the incinerator by themselves, right? So why on our journey are we we taking everybody with us? Why? Why are we not journeying, what I'm saying, from a soul and mental spirit? Why are we not doing that ourselves? I'm not saying don't interact, because we are put here to interact with others. But if you came here by yourself, you're leaving by yourself. As you journey through this life, you want to do it from a self perspective, being self aware,
I
right?
love that. Let me read this poem real quick before we wrap up because
Bring it.
what you said, I mean, it's literally on a post-it on my laptop.
I
And
love
when you were
it.
talking about being self-aware and you're by yourself and you leave here by yourself, I was like, oh, so this is by, I'm probably not pronouncing this correctly, but it's Nayyirah Waheed from the book Nejma. Um, she is an amazing poet that I found just a few weeks ago. So the poem is: the truth is, you were born for you. You were wanted by you. You came for you. You are here for you. Your existence is yours. Yes. And that
What?
is by Nayyirah Waheed from the book Nejma. But
Beautiful.
as you were talking, I was like, that's
It-
true.
I, that is the, you know what? That's said absolutely even in a more beautiful way than I say it. Like I've been saying this forever, right? Because I
I'll
try to
send it
get
to you.
people, yeah, to understand, especially when they're in depression. That is the way that my hook, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was beautiful. And I hadn't read that poem. Uh,
Oops.
and I love that. And I want
Yeah,
everyone to go out. Would you please say the name and of the poem and the artist? Because poetry is art, right?
it
The artist behind
is.
it. Please let everybody know.
And I'll leave it in the show notes as well, so
Oh,
people will
perfect.
be able to like copy and paste it. But it's not Naira. Please excuse me if I'm pronouncing the name wrong and correct me. Naira Wahid, and it's from the book Nejma. And I'll leave it in the show notes, or
I
if
love
you're
it.
watching this, on social media, I'll leave it in the captions. But
I love it. I'm gonna tell you, we have more beautiful things coming and educational things coming. This is the first show we want to bring to you because we felt that this is the best one to talk about your greatness, right? You know,
and hold
Kim.
on, I need to give you credit for that, because you're like, our first show should be about your greatness, and I was like, okay, okay.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And see, Kim, your
Got to
background
give you
is
credit.
anthropology. And I think it's going to be so important, from that perspective that people learn, what that's about and tapping really into people because that's
Yeah.
what you study. And they're going to get so much out of, education from you, on
Well,
that.
both of us
And
study
that too.
human
True.
and
That's true.
like that's what
That's
we're
true.
both educated in.
That's true.
And I think we're both educated in that because that's who we are as people,
That's true. That's true. And I want
right?
everyone, to stay tuned. We got some exciting, exciting topics because what did we say? This is real talk. We're
Real talk.
educating, coaching, motivating, right? One of the topics that you're going to hear later is DEI because I feel like a lot of people are walking and they don't really understand what DEI
Yeah.
is, right? So I can't wait for you guys to, hear our show on DEI. And we'll possibly
Maybe that should be
we'll
our next
definitely have
one.
some. Oh, I love it. We'll have some
Yeah.
guests, on the show. We have a lot of exciting things that are going to come your way. So we hope that you guys continue to tap in to Gilia and Kim, elevating and empowering, because that's what we do, and that's because we love you.
Well, I don't need to say anything else. You mic drop. We love you.
I need a little mic. Yeah, right. Little mic.
All
Yes.
right, folks, like, comment, share, subscribe, email us. I'll leave that or the email address down there somewhere. We want to connect. We want to talk to you. And until next time.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.